Thanks to Tom for the kind responses on the book club piece that I did a couple days ago. Um, and again, for the next book, we're reading a book called Shelter Me, which is very interesting. But a single mother who father dies at an early age and how she adjusts through life. Very interesting. Sounds very good. So look forward to reading that. A couple of things that as I do sometimes, I just peruse the YouTube, and what I did this morning is just kind of looking through YouTube and seeing what's hot, what's not, that kind of thing. Still, um, uh, very interested in a lot of the YouTubes that Chris Hitchens left us, and one of the more interesting was the last time he spoke. He could hardly clear his throat once in a while. He had esophageal cancer advancing stage 4, and he gave a keynote at, I think it was a Free Thinkers conference in Texas. That may have been his last public appearance. And such a brave man, and not afraid to speak his mind and go through the trials of life, and speaking the truth. And that whether you're disciplining a teenager, speaking the truth and love and courage. And Chris Hitchens gives me courage, that one can speak the truth and not be afraid. So, and in all my dealings in life, of course, one has to be very judicious and diplomatic about what one says and appropriate in social situations. But one can speak the truth with compassion, and that's one thing that Chris has taught me. That you can speak the truth and not be afraid, in a kind, compassionate way. Now, he had a little edge to him, so that, if I were to ever indulge in public speaking later in my life on free-thinking type things, which that's what I would do if I, let's say I would write a book that would become bigger and that I'd go on a speaking tour, I would be fairly forthright about my free thought, but probably not as chastising as Mr. Hitchens could be. Anyway, so that's a quick diatribe on that. But I'm just constantly fascinated at such a positive video here, and however there's just so much hate on these YouTube strings. And I even commented on the Free Thought Conference with YouTube. It's so sad to see all the hate spewing on this YouTube string, I say. I find this hate is not appropriate and very troubling. It's a little difficult to watch. It seems like his throat hurts, talking about Chris Hitchens here. His ideas are as sharp and humor still intact until the end, and if you watch the video, his last public speaking appearance, you'll see that he's hurting, talking, he's hurting. He's physically hurting to speak. And so much hate being spewed, though. I mean, just some of these YouTube posts. I know we've all seen the Richard Dawkins where he makes fun of all the hate posting, but there are people that just, I guess you call them trolls, that they just go in and they just take shots. It's like snipers in a sight. They just take shots. Thank you so much for proving the hypocrisy of Christianity. One of the quotes says, "You don't need non-believers to utter a word when sheep like you are so seething with hate that you prove Christopher's points to a T." So here's an example of somebody who's an atheist freethinker is going overboard on the hate thing with Christian. The fact that you can see a dying man in your sights and mock him to further your own goal is indicative of a human being who's not worthy to share oxygen. So, these are the kinds of, and you get a guy like me who says, "Nice video," It's such a contrast, like, who is this guy? He's not hating. What's going on? He's not being hateful. There's something wrong with him. So what are you, and then the response says, "So what you're saying is that this wonderful God of yours gave Christopher cancer so that he could die a slow and painful death because the Almighty God was so insulted and made him so angry that he would resort to such petty behavior. This is the God you worship." Let's see. When I personally say rest in peace, I mean that his body may rest in peace and don't wish for anybody to disturb his body. Why? Because it's immoral. because disturbing his body when he is dead is like beating up a paraplegic. He has no means of opposing the act. Is that a good explanation for you? And yes, I also said R.I.P. when my dog died, because unless you, it seems, didn't wish for anybody disturbing the body of someone I held dear, you seem to have distorted view of atheists. Why R.I.P. for Chris Hitchens if he never believed in life after death? Well, you can wish somebody peace. I mean, it is eternal peace, I would think. What makes it different his death, rest in peace or not? He's just dead, just like any animal dies. This is not my opinion, but atheists believe that humans are just mere animals. We don't pronounce R.I.P. for dead animals, so why for Christopher Hitchens? So, comparing him to an animal, I see where he's going with this. So because he's not a Christian, he's an animal? What's going on here? What about the children who die, babies, toddlers, very young children that are not yet at the age of accountability, the faithful who die young? The explanation for that is almost always a variation of God works in mysterious ways, or God's plan are not for us to know. That's a massive double standard for Christians clinging to, because they can't comprehend why their loving God would allow his faithful followers and innocent children to suffer and die. If you ask somebody, there was recently a case with a serial killer in the news, and asking my wife, who is a believer, saying, well, why would this 7-year-old girl from California have to die? Was this in God's plan? And she said, well, people have free will, so that God can't control everything. So you get into that argument of, if he's all omnipotent, but he can't control everything, then how can he be all omnipotent if he can't control everything? So you get in that circular, which I won't challenge my wife on, because it would just create an argument. Let's see. He has nothing to do with the discussion. As for you saying you think, so they're talking about Ted Haggard. Somehow Ted Haggard got into this discussion on Chris Hitchens. Blah blah blah. Ted Haggard. I don't even want to read that. That's so bad. So they got into, and you'll see this on YouTube too. It's these wild tangents that people get on. Wild tangents. People talking about STDs and condoms and it's like, where are they coming up with this? So it's very interesting. There's another YouTube person that I subscribe to too, that did a mockery of people that, there are actual people that are out there that are outspoken, and I'm pretty careful with how I speak, and YouTube, and even doing this is fairly risky, I guess, but it's not too bad. But there are militant atheists out there that just, and some of their points are actually right, but the way they go about it is very seething. And so there was a person, a young woman, she must be in her mid to late 20s, and she was talking about how, just reading all the posts of people that just hated her because she was free thinking. It's interesting. And these are supposed Christians, that are. And by the way, Tom, if you're watching this, I think you were one of the. My read on you is that you are actually a genuine guy, genuine Christian, and that you wouldn't be hypocritical like some of these people who say they're Christians on these websites, and then they just go and just annihilate people. For intellectual pride, perhaps. I think it's the intellectual pride thing, really. And what did Christ say about pride, right? I mean, pride was not a good thing. So let's see. The burden is on you, spelled you, just like the letter U. The burden is on you to prove what would be called insane and illogical if it pertained to any topic. Would you ask someone to prove the tooth fairy, boogie monster, or Santa Claus isn't real? That would be ridiculous. In the same vein, you can't say atheists are unable to prove an invisible man born from a virgin and rose from the dead is not real. It's equally ridiculous. Why, spelled like the letter Y, why should someone need to prove an idea that goes against all science and basic laws of nature taught since kindergarten isn't real. So it's this battle between faith and reason, and it's been going on for the ages now. There's what I hear is that Sam Harris has got a book that's coming out that is about the and Sam Harris isn't. He's an avowed atheist. He has a book coming out that is actually about spirituality, and this is one of the taboo things, which makes this interesting. Is if you're an atheist, so to speak, you can't talk about spirituality. That the two are mutually exclusive. But what he's doing is he's saying that there are numinous things in life. There are things in life we can't explain and can be awe-inspiring, spiritual type experiences that you can have without assuming a God and a set of rules. So that it can be more beautiful if we just admit we don't know, but how beautiful it is, So I look forward to the Sam Harris book on spirituality. I think it's going to help bring us together. And an obsession in my life has become trying to bring spiritual people and scientific type people together. I think that's what, if there's any passion that my life has right now, that's one of the major things, is to try to bring people together somehow and exhibit a gentle type love, and then have people follow that somehow. But I think what we really need in this world is more understanding of each other. The right understanding the left, and the liberals understanding the conservatives, and that we're all in this boat together, and we don't have very long. All these senseless wars and treating each other so poorly, and that's it just makes me so sad that we're treating each other so poorly, and that there's such arrogance in the world on so many different levels. And yet it's the best of times and the worst of times. It's like the line in Charles Dickens' book. It's like there's so much hope in humanity. There's so much hope out there, and there's so many beautiful things that the person can focus on the beautiful. You could choose to focus on the beautiful, or you could choose to focus on the destructive. You can, as using the Freudian analogy, it would be, you can choose life and growth and self actualization, or you can choose thanatos. You choose what you want to choose. Choose constructive, choose love, choose smiling over frowning, choose life, choose beauty over death and destruction. It's that simple, I think. So if you want to look at it in a religious sense, it would be choosing Christ. Just choose Him. Okay, I think that's enough material for today.